Welcome to part 11, in our tutorial series on how to develop a Contras-like game, with free visual game engine Gdevelop. In this video, we're going to start adding the possibility to add new weapons that will have different firing behaviors. This is important to be able to introduce in the game elements that we can use to level up progressively the difficulty of the game. We have already downloaded the resources that we need to implement the new system, and we will post the links on the video description below. But first, as always, let's see what we have done in the previous videos and see if we can fix any bug. We can see that as soon as we run the game, there is a problem with the parallax of the game while the player is falling to the ground. This is caused by the fact that we didn't think of implementing the Y parallax. So, let's start by fixing this. It is quite easy. Let's go to the game main events and look for the events where we implement the X parallax. We can see that we had put one Y parallax for the main layer. So copy all the events associated with the X parallax on the different layers, with the exception of the game layer. Paste them below and edit each of them to be associated with the position Y of the camera, and replacing all the references to the X coordinate with the Y. Let's run it again. Great, it is looking better. So, now, let's implement the new behavior. First, let's create a new gun. For this, add a new sprite object and name it gun_sprite_1. Add a new animation and load it with the image of the new gun behavior that you want to add to the game. Next, click on the Edit Points button, and put the origin point of the image in the center. Click Close and then Apply to finish and exit the sprite creation process. Now, we need a way to tell the player what the current weapon is active, as to be able to fire with different patterns, different rates, or different bullets. In the object pane, right-click on the physics player and select the option Edit Object Variables. Click on the Add button to add a new variable named Weapon and set its default value to 0. Click the Apply button to exit. Let's go now to the gun sprite 1 again, and right-click on it. Choose the option Edit Object Variables and create a new variable weapon, and in this case, set the value to 1. Click the Apply button to exit. Drag the weapon sprite to the scene view. Preferably outside of the game level assets, as to be able to select it without too many problems. Resize it to a more convenient size and set the layer to be game. Drag it to the place where you want it to be on the game. Double-click on it to open the Properties dialog box. And then click on the Behaviors tab. If you have the sign behavior already installed, select it from the list. If not, click on the Search New Behaviors tab and look for the sign movement to install it and add it to the gun sprite. Adjust the values parameters for the sign function. We don't want a movement in X, but rather in Y, as we want our gun to be floating up and down in the world before we collect it. For the speed, let's use a 30. Let's run the game. And we have our weapon floating in the air, waiting for us to collect it. Let's now actually collect it. For this, let's create a new group for weapon management. Name it Weapon. Then, add a new sub-event. For the condition, let's add Physic Player, and in the search box type Collision. Select it, and then in the object property choose our new gun sprite 1. Once we have collected the weapon, we need to tell the player which is the new weapon. For this, let's add new action associated with Physic Player, and let's modify the value of object variable weapon with the same variable on the gun sprite 1. We don't need any more the new sprite, so let's delete it from the world. By now, we would already have a system to pick up the new gun and set the player to use it. But it would be very dull. We have already commented in previous videos, that in games, every action should have a reaction. The reaction can be of a lot of different types: visual, sound, shake, etc. So, in this case, let's make it visual and audible. For that, let's go to the scene view, and let's duplicate any of the particle systems that we have already created for the game. let's rename it to Gun Collect Particles, and double-click on it to edit the properties of the particle system and make it visually different. Once done, in the pickup event, after the gun sprite deletion from the world, let's add a new action to create the new particle system just created. Next, add a new action to play a music file, and in the file properties set it to the collect sound effect that you can download from the link in the description below. Run the game. And now, the gun when picked disappears with a really nice look and feel. Time to actually implement the logic behind a new weapon. For this, we need to modify the event where we are firing, so let's go to the game main events sheet. We can see that we have only one action that detects that the player has fired and created the bullet in its trail. So, let's create a new sub-event to this event. In this condition, let's check if the value of the physic player weapon variable is 0. If it is the case, then we should create normally the bullet in the trail. So, from the previous event, copy the actions associated with creating the bullet, trail, and applying the motion forces, to the new sub-event. Time for the new weapon. So, create a new sub-event, and in the condition, check if the physic player weapon is equal to 1. If it is the case, then you need to create the new behavior. In this case, what we want to implement is for the new gun to shoot 3 bullets at a time, with a 45 degrees separation. So, let's add 3 new sub-events. Let's copy the actions associated with the creation of the bullet, the trail, and the applications of the motion's forces to each of the new sub-events. To make move with different angles, we need to modify the actions where we are applying the force that creates the movement. If we look closely, we can see that we have an angle parameter for each of the actions adding forces to the objects. So, let's modify 2 of the 3 actions. In one, we will add plus 45, and in the second one, we will subtract. You need to modify both trail and bullet objects. Let's run the game. Let's fire some shots. And you can see that we are firing 3 bullets simultaneously in 3 different directions and that they can destroy enemies. We hope that you have liked this video. If it has been the case, consider subscribing, giving a like, and clicking on the notification button. If you have any questions, problems, or comments, don't hesitate in putting a comment and we will answer as fast as we could. See you in the next video, game developers.